Question 1. Upon reviewing the preliminary enrollment figures for the upcoming academic year, the admissions department notes a significant shortfall compared to the target set by the university administration. The administration is pressuring for immediate positive news to maintain confidence. Which approach best aligns with professional integrity and the likely spirit of the Adigrat University entrance exam's regulatory framework regarding institutional reporting? Option A. Delay the official reporting of enrollment figures until a more favorable situation arises, suggesting that data collection is still ongoing. Option B. Inflate the enrollment numbers to meet or exceed the administration's target, citing optimistic projections. Option C. Present only the data points that show positive trends in specific programs, omitting the overall shortfall. Option D. Report the current enrollment figures accurately, acknowledging the shortfall, and propose a revised strategy to address recruitment challenges. The correct answer is D. Report the current enrollment figures accurately, acknowledging the shortfall, and propose a revised strategy to address recruitment challenges. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for enrollment figures and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and timely information. Misrepresenting data, even with the intention of appearing more successful, can have serious repercussions, including reputational damage, loss of trust from prospective students and stakeholders, and potential regulatory scrutiny if such reporting falls under any official guidelines for university admissions data. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional pressures with professional integrity. The correct approach involves a transparent and accurate reporting of the current enrollment status, coupled with a proactive communication strategy to address any potential concerns arising from lower than expected figures. This upholds the principle of honesty and integrity in professional reporting, which is a cornerstone of ethical conduct in academic institutions. Adhering to the Adigrat University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which implicitly values accuracy and truthful representation in all academic and administrative processes, is paramount. Providing a realistic assessment allows for informed decision-making regarding future recruitment strategies and resource allocation. An incorrect approach would be to inflate the enrollment numbers. This constitutes a misrepresentation of facts, violating the ethical duty of candor, and potentially breaching any guidelines within the Adigrat University entrance exam framework that mandate truthful reporting of institutional data. Such an action erodes trust and can lead to significant negative consequences if discovered. Another incorrect approach would be to delay reporting the figures indefinitely. This is a passive form of misrepresentation, as it withholds crucial information and creates an inaccurate perception of the university's performance. It fails to meet the implicit expectation of timely reporting inherent in administrative processes and can be seen as an attempt to avoid accountability. A third incorrect approach would be to selectively report only the positive aspects of enrollment without providing a complete picture. This is a form of selective truth-telling, which, while not outright fabrication, is misleading and fails to meet the standard of comprehensive and honest reporting expected in professional settings. It can lead to flawed decision-making by those relying on the incomplete information. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical obligations, honesty, integrity, and accuracy in reporting. 2. Assessing the potential impact of different reporting strategies on stakeholders and the institution's reputation. 3. Consulting relevant internal policies and any explicit guidelines related to data reporting for the Adigrat University entrance exam process. 4. Prioritizing transparent and factual communication, even when the information is not ideal. 5. Developing a strategy to address any challenges or concerns arising from the accurate reporting of data. Question 2. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed new admissions policy at Adigrat University could significantly increase student diversity, but concerns have been raised about its potential impact on academic rigor and resource allocation. Which approach best guides the admissions committee's decision-making process? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies potential benefits and drawbacks, considers qualitative factors, and evaluates short-term and long-term consequences across all relevant university departments and student support services. Option B. Focus solely on the qualitative benefits of increased diversity, deferring any detailed analysis of academic or resource implications to a later, unspecified date. Option C. Prioritize the immediate achievement of increased diversity targets, assuming that any negative consequences will be manageable and can be addressed reactively after policy implementation. Option D. Reject the policy outright due to initial concerns about academic rigor and resource strain, without undertaking a detailed analysis of potential benefits or exploring mitigation strategies. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies potential benefits and drawbacks, considers qualitative factors, and evaluates short-term and long-term consequences across all relevant university departments and student support services. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for the Adigrat University Admissions Committee as they evaluate the potential impact of a new admissions policy. The committee must balance the stated benefits of increased diversity against potential negative consequences on academic standards and resource allocation. This requires careful judgment to ensure the policy aligns with the university's mission and regulatory obligations, without compromising its academic integrity or operational feasibility. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers both quantitative and qualitative factors, as well as short-term and long-term consequences. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with principles of good governance and responsible institutional management. By systematically evaluating potential benefits against potential drawbacks and considering various stakeholder perspectives, the committee can make an informed decision that is both strategic and compliant with any relevant Adigrat University internal guidelines or national educational directives. This ensures that any policy change is implemented with a clear understanding of its implications and a plan to mitigate risks. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the perceived benefits of increased diversity without a thorough examination of potential negative impacts. This could lead to unintended consequences, such as a decline in academic performance if support structures are not adequately enhanced, or strain on resources that could compromise the quality of education for all students. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the policy based on initial concerns without conducting a detailed analysis to understand the magnitude and likelihood of these concerns. This would be a failure of due diligence and could prevent the university from achieving valuable diversity goals. A third incorrect approach might be to implement the policy without any form of post-implementation review, failing to monitor its actual impact and make necessary adjustments. This demonstrates a lack of accountability and a disregard for continuous improvement. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making framework. This begins with clearly defining the objectives of the proposed policy. Next, they should identify all potential impacts, both positive and negative, across various dimensions: academic, financial, social, operational. This should be followed by a systematic evaluation of the likelihood and magnitude of each impact. Crucially, they must consider how these impacts align with the university's mission, values, and any applicable regulatory or ethical standards. Finally, they should develop mitigation strategies for identified risks and a plan for ongoing monitoring and evaluation before making a final decision. Question 3. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for admission to Adigrat University possesses a slightly below-average score on the entrance examination, but has a compelling personal essay and a strong recommendation from a respected community leader. The admissions committee is considering whether to admit this candidate based on their perceived potential and influential recommendation, despite not fully meeting the quantitative entrance exam threshold. Option A. Admit the candidate based on the strength of their personal essay and the influential recommendation, assuming their potential and community standing outweigh the entrance exam score. Option B. Defer the decision and request additional documentation or an interview to further assess the candidate's potential, without explicitly referencing the entrance exam score as a primary factor. Option C. Recommend the candidate for a probationary admission status, allowing them to prove their academic capabilities in their first semester, irrespective of their entrance exam performance. Option D. Prioritize a comprehensive review of the candidate's academic record and entrance exam score against the established Adigrat University entrance exam admission criteria, ensuring all decisions are based on objective, predefined benchmarks. The correct answer is D. Prioritize a comprehensive review of the candidate's academic record and entrance exam score against the established Adigrat University entrance exam admission criteria, ensuring all decisions are based on objective, predefined benchmarks. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in university admissions, balancing the desire to admit promising candidates with the need to adhere strictly to established admission criteria and ethical guidelines. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the admissions committee to navigate potential conflicts between personal judgment, institutional policy, and the principle of fairness to all applicants. A decision made based on personal bias or a deviation from established procedures can lead to accusations of unfairness, discrimination, and a breach of institutional integrity. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all decisions are transparent, justifiable, and aligned with the university's stated objectives and regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's academic record, entrance exam scores, and any other stipulated admission requirements. This approach prioritizes adherence to the Adigrat University entrance exam's established regulatory framework, which mandates that all admissions decisions be based on merit and predefined criteria. This ensures fairness, consistency, and transparency in the selection process, upholding the university's commitment to academic excellence and equal opportunity. It aligns with the ethical principle of treating all applicants equitably and making decisions based on objective evidence rather than subjective impressions or external pressures. An incorrect approach that relies on subjective impressions or external influence, such as a recommendation from a prominent figure without a corresponding strong academic profile, fails to uphold the integrity of the admission process. This approach violates the principle of meritocracy, which is fundamental to academic institutions. It can also lead to a breach of institutional policy if the university has explicit guidelines against preferential treatment. Furthermore, it undermines the credibility of the entrance exam itself, suggesting that factors other than demonstrated academic ability are being considered. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on the applicant's perceived potential for future success, without rigorous evaluation against the established entrance exam criteria, is also professionally unacceptable. While potential is a desirable trait, the entrance exam is designed to assess a baseline of knowledge and aptitude. Deviating from these established metrics introduces subjectivity and can lead to admitting students who may not possess the foundational skills necessary for success in the university's programs, potentially leading to higher attrition rates and a dilution of academic standards. This approach bypasses the established regulatory framework for admissions. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the Adigrat University entrance exam's admission regulations. This includes 1. Establishing clear, objective admission criteria beforehand. 2. Ensuring all committee members are trained on these criteria and ethical considerations. 3. Conducting a systematic and documented review of each applicant's qualifications against these criteria. 4. Seeking consensus among committee members based on evidence, not personal bias. 5. Maintaining transparency in the decision-making process and being prepared to justify decisions based on the established framework. Question 4. Examination of the data shows a slight but noticeable increase in the number of applicants who did not complete their application forms by the deadline. This trend, if not properly understood, could skew the perception of actual enrollment potential. Which approach best addresses the potential impact of this data anomaly on university planning and reporting? Option A. Classify all incomplete applications as definitively lost to enrollment and adjust projections downwards significantly without further investigation. Option B. Focus only on the number of fully completed applications and disregard the incomplete ones entirely in all reports and planning. Option C. Conduct a detailed impact assessment to understand the reasons for incomplete applications, the characteristics of these applicants, and the potential effect on actual enrollment figures and future recruitment strategies. Option D. Immediately report the raw applicant numbers as an indicator of success, without further analysis of the incomplete applications. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed impact assessment to understand the reasons for incomplete applications, the characteristics of these applicants, and the potential effect on actual enrollment figures and future recruitment strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for enrollment data and the ethical obligation to ensure data accuracy and prevent misleading reporting. The pressure to present favorable statistics can tempt individuals to manipulate or selectively present information, compromising academic integrity. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a thorough and unbiased impact assessment of the data, focusing on its accuracy, completeness, and potential implications for future decision-making and reporting. This aligns with the Adigrat University entrance exam's implicit commitment to academic rigor and ethical conduct. By systematically evaluating the data's impact, the university can ensure that any decisions or reports based on it are well-founded, transparent, and uphold the institution's reputation. This approach prioritizes data integrity, which is a cornerstone of sound academic and administrative practice. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on presenting the most favorable enrollment numbers without a critical assessment of the underlying data's accuracy or completeness would be ethically unsound. This would violate the principle of honesty and transparency expected in academic reporting. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying the release of data indefinitely due to minor discrepancies, would be professionally inefficient and could hinder necessary institutional planning and evaluation, failing to meet the practical needs of the university. A third incorrect approach, which involves selectively highlighting positive trends while ignoring negative ones, constitutes a form of data manipulation and misrepresentation, undermining the credibility of the university's reporting and potentially leading to flawed strategic decisions. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly identifying the objective e.g., reporting enrollment data. This should be followed by an assessment of available information and potential impacts, considering both quantitative and qualitative factors. Ethical considerations and relevant university guidelines must be paramount. The process involves evaluating different courses of action against these criteria, selecting the option that best balances institutional needs with ethical obligations and regulatory compliance, and then documenting the decision-making process. Question 5. Assessment of the ethical implications and potential impact on academic integrity of accepting a significant donation from a company whose executives have children applying for admission to Adigrat University's upcoming entrance examination. Option A. Accept the donation and discreetly allocate it to a department unrelated to admissions to mitigate any appearance of impropriety. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of Adigrat University's policies on donations and conflicts of interest, and if permissible, accept the donation with full transparency and assurances that it will not influence the examination process. Option C. Immediately accept the donation to secure funding for university projects, assuming the executive's children will be evaluated fairly regardless of the donation. Option D. Reject the donation outright due to the potential for perceived or actual influence on the examination process, regardless of university policies. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of Adigrat University's policies on donations and conflicts of interest, and if permissible, accept the donation with full transparency and assurances that it will not influence the examination process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination process. Adigrat University, like any academic institution, must uphold its reputation and the credibility of its admissions. Accepting a donation that could be perceived as influencing the exam's fairness or outcome would undermine public trust and potentially lead to legal challenges or reputational damage. The core of the challenge lies in balancing financial imperatives with academic and ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the donation's potential impact on the examination's integrity and adherence to Adigrat University's established policies and ethical guidelines for academic admissions and financial acceptance. This requires a transparent process that prioritizes fairness, impartiality, and the avoidance of any appearance of impropriety. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of academic integrity and good governance, which mandate that all university processes, especially admissions, must be free from undue influence or bias. The university's regulatory framework, as implied by its status as an educational institution, would likely stipulate strict rules against conflicts of interest and the acceptance of gifts that could compromise academic standards. An incorrect approach would be to accept the donation without a rigorous review, especially if the donor has a direct or indirect interest in the examination outcomes. This would violate the principle of academic integrity by creating a potential conflict of interest and could be seen as a form of academic malpractice, undermining the meritocratic basis of admissions. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the donation solely based on the donor's identity without considering the donation's nature and purpose. While caution is necessary, a blanket rejection without due diligence might be overly restrictive and could miss opportunities for legitimate support, provided it can be accepted ethically. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the donation, but attempt to conceal its source or the circumstances of its acceptance. This lack of transparency is ethically unsound and erodes trust, potentially leading to severe reputational damage and internal disciplinary actions. Professionals should approach such situations by first identifying all stakeholders and potential conflicts of interest. They should then consult relevant university policies, ethical codes, and any applicable national regulations governing educational institutions and donations. A structured risk assessment should be conducted, evaluating the potential benefits against the risks to academic integrity and reputation. Decision-making should be guided by principles of transparency, fairness, and accountability, with clear documentation of the process and rationale. If there is any doubt about the ethical implications, seeking advice from a legal counsel or an ethics committee is a crucial step in the professional decision-making process. Question 6. Which approach would be most appropriate for the Adigrat University Admissions Committee to take when a credible report of potential cheating during the entrance examination is received, considering the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment practices? Option A. Publicly announce that cheating has been detected and that all students will be subject to increased scrutiny in future academic endeavors. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation into the reported incident, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the suspected student an opportunity to respond before making any decision. Option C. Immediately disqualify the suspected student and inform them of their expulsion from the entrance examination process based on the report. Option D. Dismiss the report as unsubstantiated without further inquiry, assuming that all students adhered to the examination rules. The correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the suspected student and inform them of their expulsion from the entrance examination process based on the report. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students and the university's admissions committee regarding the integrity of the entrance examination process. The core issue revolves around ensuring fairness and preventing any form of academic dishonesty, which is paramount in maintaining the credibility of Adigrat University's academic standards. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential breaches of examination regulations without compromising the rights of genuine candidates or creating an environment of undue suspicion. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for strict adherence to rules with the principles of natural justice. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based review of any suspected irregularities. This means gathering all relevant information, including examination scripts, invigilator reports, and any digital records, to form a clear picture of what may have occurred. Following established university procedures for handling examination misconduct, which are designed to be fair and transparent, is crucial. This approach ensures that any disciplinary action is taken only after a thorough investigation and that decisions are grounded in factual evidence, thereby upholding the university's commitment to academic integrity as stipulated by its internal regulations and the broader Ethiopian higher education guidelines. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification based on mere suspicion without investigation would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses the fundamental principle of due process, denying the student the opportunity to be heard or to present their case. It also risks penalizing innocent students based on unsubstantiated claims, which is contrary to ethical conduct and the spirit of fairness. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the suspected irregularity altogether, would be a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to maintain a fair and secure examination environment. This inaction could embolden future misconduct and erode the trust placed in the examination system by students and the wider academic community. Professionals in academic administration should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence, fairness, and adherence to established procedures. This involves 1. Identifying the potential issue and its implications for academic integrity. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and national guidelines on examination conduct and misconduct. 3. Initiating a formal investigation process that is impartial and thorough. 4. Providing the affected individual with an opportunity to respond to allegations. 5. Making a decision based solely on the evidence gathered and in accordance with established disciplinary procedures. 6. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. Question 7. Implementation of the Adigrat University entrance exam admission process requires careful consideration of candidate eligibility. If an admissions committee member receives an anonymous tip suggesting a candidate may have misrepresented their academic qualifications on their application, what is the most appropriate course of action according to Adigrat University's established entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines? Option A. Ignore the anonymous tip as it is unsubstantiated and could be malicious, to avoid potential reputational damage to the university. Option B. Conduct a thorough and objective investigation into the allegations, reviewing the candidate's submitted documents and any relevant supporting evidence against the Adigrat University entrance exam admission criteria before making any decision. Option C. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the anonymous tip to maintain the integrity of the exam. Option D. Contact the candidate directly and ask them to explain the allegations without providing specific details of the tip. The correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the anonymous tip to maintain the integrity of the exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable entrance exam results. Adigrat University, like any reputable institution, has established regulations and guidelines to ensure a fair and equitable admission process. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these specific Adigrat University entrance exam regulations to a situation where a candidate might be perceived as having an unfair advantage. Careful judgment is required to uphold the integrity of the examination process, while also ensuring that all candidates are treated fairly and according to the established rules. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the candidate's application and any supporting documentation against the explicit criteria outlined in the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established framework, ensuring that decisions are based on documented rules rather than assumptions or external pressures. Specifically, the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations likely stipulate clear criteria for eligibility, admission requirements, and the process for handling any potential irregularities. By strictly following these, the university upholds its commitment to transparency, fairness, and meritocracy, which are fundamental ethical principles in academic admissions. An incorrect approach that involves immediately disqualifying the candidate based on a rumor or unsubstantiated information fails to adhere to the principles of due process and fairness mandated by the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. Such an action would be a direct violation of the established procedures for investigating and addressing potential issues, leading to an arbitrary and potentially discriminatory outcome. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the potential issue entirely due to the candidate's perceived potential or connections, undermines the integrity of the examination process and creates an unfair playing field for other applicants. This would be a breach of professional ethics and a failure to uphold the university's commitment to merit-based admissions as defined by its entrance exam framework. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. This involves identifying the specific rules pertaining to candidate eligibility, application review, and the handling of potential discrepancies. The next step is to gather objective evidence related to the situation. If there is a concern, it must be investigated impartially, following the procedures laid out in the regulations. Decisions should then be made based solely on the evidence and in strict accordance with the established rules, ensuring that any action taken is justifiable and defensible under the Adigrat University entrance exam framework. Question 8. The efficiency study reveals that a new AI-powered proctoring system could significantly reduce administrative overhead for the Adigrat University entrance exam. However, The university's internal guidelines for the entrance exam are silent on the use of such advanced technological proctoring methods. What is the most appropriate course of action for the university administration to ensure compliance with the Adigrat University Entrance Exams regulatory framework? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the Adigrat University Entrance Exams official regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines to determine if the proposed AI proctoring system aligns with existing provisions or if amendments are necessary, and consult with the relevant academic and legal departments for guidance. Option B. Proceed with implementing the AI-powered proctoring system after a brief internal discussion, assuming that the absence of explicit prohibition means it is permissible under the Adigrat University Entrance Exams general principles of fairness and integrity. Option C. Adopt the AI-powered proctoring system based on its widespread adoption in other higher education institutions globally, assuming that such external best practices would be implicitly acceptable for the Adigrat University Entrance Exam. Option D. Implement the AI-powered proctoring system immediately to gain efficiency benefits and address any potential compliance issues with the Adigrat University Entrance Exam regulations only if they are raised by external auditors or examination candidates after the exam has concluded. The correct answer is B. Proceed with implementing the AI-powered proctoring system after a brief internal discussion, assuming that the absence of explicit prohibition means it is permissible under the Adigrat University Entrance Exams general principles of fairness and integrity. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's desire for efficiency and cost reduction with the fundamental ethical obligation to ensure the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process. The pressure to implement changes quickly, driven by the efficiency study, could lead to overlooking critical procedural safeguards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes do not compromise the validity or accessibility of the exam for prospective students. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed changes against the Adigrat University Entrance Exam regulations and guidelines, specifically focusing on any provisions related to exam administration, question design, and fairness. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework. By consulting the official Adigrat University Entrance Exam documentation, the administration can identify specific rules that govern the implementation of new technologies or assessment methods. This ensures that any modifications are compliant, equitable, and do not disadvantage any group of applicants, thereby upholding the principles of academic integrity and fairness mandated by the university's own examination framework. Implementing changes without consulting the Adigrat University Entrance Exam regulations is a significant regulatory failure. This approach disregards the established legal and procedural framework governing the exam, potentially leading to the introduction of methods that are not permissible or that violate the rights of applicants. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the importance of adhering to the specific rules set forth by the university for its entrance examinations. Adopting a new assessment tool solely based on its perceived efficiency, without verifying its alignment with the Adigrat University Entrance Exam guidelines, represents a failure to conduct proper due diligence. While efficiency is a desirable outcome, it cannot supersede the regulatory requirements for a fair and valid examination. This approach prioritizes a secondary objective over the primary mandate of administering a compliant and equitable entrance exam. Relying on external, non-university sanctioned best practices without cross-referencing them with the Adigrat University Entrance Exam's specific regulatory framework is another regulatory failure. The Adigrat University Entrance Exam has its own unique set of rules and guidelines that must be followed. External best practices, while potentially valuable, are not a substitute for understanding and adhering to the specific jurisdiction's requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Identify the core objective. In this case, it's to improve the entrance exam process. 2. Consult the governing regulations. Thoroughly review the Adigrat University Entrance Exam's official regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines. 3. Assess proposed changes against regulations. Evaluate any proposed changes for compliance with each relevant rule. 4. Seek clarification. If any aspect of the regulations is unclear regarding the proposed changes, seek official interpretation from the relevant university authorities. 5. Implement compliant changes. Only proceed with changes that are demonstrably compliant with the Adigrat University Entrance Exams framework. 6. Document the process. Maintain records of the review and decision-making process to demonstrate due diligence and compliance. Question 9. During the evaluation of Adigrat University Entrance Examination results, a committee member suggests adjusting the minimum score required for admission downwards to accommodate a larger cohort of students, citing potential benefits for regional development. This suggestion is made without reference to any formal review or amendment of the university's published admission criteria. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the committee? Option A. Lower the minimum score for admission as suggested to increase the number of admitted students and potentially benefit regional development. Option B. Proceed with the evaluation strictly according to the established minimum score and admission criteria as outlined in the official Adigrat University Entrance Examination Regulations. Option C. Create a separate, lower passing threshold for a subset of candidates who might contribute to regional development, without altering the main admission criteria. Option D. Prioritize candidates for admission based on their perceived potential for future economic contributions to the region, even if their entrance exam scores are below the established minimum. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the evaluation strictly according to the established minimum score and admission criteria as outlined in the official Adigrat University Entrance Examination Regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to admit a high number of students. The university entrance exam process, governed by Adigrat University's specific regulations, demands a fair and transparent evaluation of all candidates. The challenge lies in upholding these standards, while potentially facing external pressures or internal desires to increase enrollment figures. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision-making process is rooted in established academic policies and ethical considerations, rather than expediency or external influence. The correct approach involves a rigorous adherence to the established Adigrat University Entrance Examination Guidelines. This means evaluating candidates solely based on the criteria outlined in the official examination framework, which typically includes academic merit, standardized test scores, and potentially other objective measures defined by the university. This approach is correct because it upholds the principles of fairness, equity, and academic rigor that are fundamental to any reputable educational institution's admission process. It ensures that all applicants are judged by the same objective standards, preventing bias and maintaining the integrity of the university's academic reputation. An incorrect approach would be to arbitrarily lower the passing threshold for the entrance exam without a formal review and amendment of the university's admission policies. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the established procedures for modifying admission criteria, which are likely detailed in Adigrat University's academic regulations. Ethically, it is a failure of fairness, as it creates an uneven playing field for candidates who met the original standards. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize candidates based on factors not explicitly stated in the official examination framework, such as personal connections or perceived future economic contributions to the region. This is a significant ethical failure, as it introduces bias and nepotism into the admission process, undermining the meritocratic principles of academic selection. It also represents a regulatory failure if Adigrat University's guidelines mandate objective, merit-based admissions. A third incorrect approach would be to create a separate, less stringent set of admission criteria for a specific group of students, without proper authorization or justification within the university's regulatory framework. This is a regulatory failure as it deviates from established admission protocols and could be seen as discriminatory or unfair to other applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of Adigrat University's entrance examination regulations and admission policies. When faced with pressure or a desire to alter admission outcomes, a professional must first consult these governing documents. If a change is contemplated, it must follow the prescribed procedures for policy review and amendment, which typically involve academic committees and administrative approval. Transparency and adherence to objective criteria are paramount. If external pressures arise, They should be addressed by reiterating the university's commitment to its established policies and the importance of maintaining academic integrity. Question 10. System analysis indicates that an applicant for the Adigrat University entrance exam presents a strong academic record, but has a minor discrepancy in one of the required supporting documents, which is not explicitly addressed in the Adigrat University entrance exam's official guidelines. The admissions officer is aware of the university's general emphasis on academic merit and the potential of this applicant. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the regulatory framework of the Adigrat University entrance exam? Option A. Accept the application, but require the applicant to submit a detailed explanation for the discrepancy, and then make a final decision based on the plausibility of the explanation, even if it deviates from the initial assessment of the discrepancy's minor nature. Option B. Reject the application outright due to the presence of any discrepancy, regardless of its nature or the applicant's overall qualifications, as per a strict interpretation of document submission rules. Option C. Seek clarification from the Adigrat University Admissions Committee or relevant authority regarding the specific protocol for handling minor document discrepancies, and make a decision based on their guidance and the official examination regulations. Option D. Proceed with the application by accepting the applicant based on their strong academic record and perceived potential, assuming the discrepancy is minor and can be overlooked. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the application by accepting the applicant based on their strong academic record and perceived potential, assuming the discrepancy is minor and can be overlooked. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge common in academic institutions, ensuring that the admissions process adheres strictly to the established regulations and guidelines of Adigrat University. The core difficulty lies in balancing the university's stated objectives with the practical application of its admission criteria, particularly when faced with potentially ambiguous or borderline cases. Professional judgment is required to interpret and apply these rules consistently and fairly, avoiding personal biases or external pressures. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Adigrat University entrance exam's regulatory framework. This means meticulously reviewing the applicant's documentation against the defined academic prerequisites, eligibility criteria, and any specific departmental requirements as outlined in the official examination guidelines. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of regulatory compliance, which is paramount in any institutional setting. Adhering to these regulations ensures fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the admissions process, preventing arbitrary decisions and upholding the university's standards. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established Adigrat University entrance exam regulations based on perceived potential of the applicant or anecdotal evidence of past exceptions. This failure stems from a disregard for the explicit rules governing admissions, potentially leading to unfairness for other applicants who meet the criteria. It undermines the credibility of the examination process and could set a precedent for future noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize external recommendations or personal opinions over the documented eligibility criteria. This violates the principle of meritocracy and objective assessment, which are fundamental to fair admissions. Such an approach introduces subjectivity and bias, compromising the integrity of the selection process and potentially admitting candidates who do not meet the required academic standards set by Adigrat University. A further incorrect approach would be to make an exception based on a perceived need to fill a quota or meet enrollment targets without a clear regulatory basis within the Adigrat University entrance exam guidelines. This prioritizes administrative convenience or external pressures over established academic and procedural rules. It can lead to the admission of underqualified candidates and erode the academic rigor of the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the Adigrat University entrance exam's official regulations and guidelines. When faced with ambiguity, seeking clarification from the relevant admissions committee or administrative body within Adigrat University is crucial. The decision must be grounded in the documented rules, ensuring consistency, fairness, and the upholding of institutional standards. Question 11. Performance analysis shows that the recent Adigrat University entrance exam results have a higher than expected failure rate, potentially impacting the university's perceived academic standing and future enrollment figures. The admissions committee is considering presenting a revised summary of the results that highlights the performance of students admitted to specific high-demand programs, while downplaying the overall failure rate. Which of the following approaches best upholds the principles of regulatory compliance and academic integrity for Adigrat University? Option A. Suggesting a review of the exam's difficulty level and adjusting the passing score retroactively to reduce the failure rate before reporting the results. Option B. Releasing only the pass rates for individual subjects without providing an overall pass or fail statistic for the entire examination. Option C. Presenting the complete and accurate performance data of the entrance exam, including the overall failure rate, to relevant university stakeholders and regulatory bodies. Option D. Creating a summary report that focuses solely on the performance of students admitted to popular programs, omitting the overall failure rate to project a more positive institutional image. The correct answer is C. Presenting the complete and accurate performance data of the entrance exam, including the overall failure rate, to relevant university stakeholders and regulatory bodies. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable performance metrics. The university entrance exam, as a gatekeeper for future academic success, demands a rigorous and fair assessment process. Misrepresenting performance data, even with the intention of improving the university's standing, undermines this fundamental principle. The correct approach involves accurately reporting performance data, regardless of its immediate implications for rankings or perceived success. This aligns with the ethical obligation of honesty and transparency in academic and administrative processes, specifically Adigrat University's entrance exam regulations, as per the Ethiopian Higher Education Proclamation, Proclamation No. 650/2010, and its subsequent amendments, emphasize the importance of merit-based selection and accurate data reporting to ensure fairness and credibility. Adhering to these regulations means presenting the true results of the entrance exam, allowing for objective evaluation and informed decision-making regarding admissions and program development. An incorrect approach would be to manipulate or selectively present performance data to create a more favorable impression. This violates the core principles of academic integrity and the regulatory framework governing higher education in Ethiopia. Such actions could be construed as academic misconduct or administrative malpractice, potentially leading to disciplinary action, reputational damage, and a loss of trust from prospective students, faculty, and regulatory bodies. Furthermore, it distorts the true picture of student preparedness, hindering the university's ability to identify areas for improvement in its preparatory programs or curriculum. Professionals in university administration must employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the relevant regulations and ethical guidelines governing academic assessments and data reporting. 2. Evaluating the potential consequences of different actions on academic integrity, institutional reputation, and stakeholder trust. 3. Consulting with relevant stakeholders, such as academic deans or ethics committees, when faced with ambiguous situations. 4. Committing to transparency and accuracy in all reporting and decision-making processes. Question 12. Process analysis reveals that during the Adigrat University entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate referencing a small, handwritten note tucked discreetly within their exam booklet. The invigilator is unsure if this constitutes a violation of the Adigrat University entrance exam's specific rules regarding permissible materials. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Immediately confiscate the note and disqualify the candidate, citing a breach of examination rules. Option B. Ask the candidate to explain the contents of the note and make an on-the-spot judgment about its permissibility. Option C. Allow the candidate to continue without intervention, assuming the note is insignificant or permissible. Option D. Temporarily pause the candidate's exam, discreetly confiscate the note for later review by examination authorities, and continue the exam under observation. Correct answer is A. Immediately confiscate the note and disqualify the candidate, citing a breach of examination rules. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess candidates. The challenge lies in interpreting the examination guidelines and applying them consistently and ethically to a situation that might be ambiguous. Careful judgment is required to avoid both undue leniency that compromises standards and excessive strictness that unfairly penalizes a candidate. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations concerning the use of external materials during examinations. This approach is right because it adheres strictly to the established rules, ensuring fairness and consistency for all candidates. The Adigrat University entrance exam guidelines, as per its regulatory framework, likely stipulate specific conditions under which external aids are permissible or prohibited. By consulting these specific regulations, the invigilator can make an informed and defensible decision that upholds the integrity of the examination process. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for adherence to examination protocols. An approach that immediately disqualifies the candidate without consulting the specific Adigrat University entrance exam regulations is professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge the possibility that the material might be permissible under certain, perhaps unstated, conditions, or that there might be a process for addressing such situations. It represents a failure to follow due process and a potential violation of the candidate's right to a fair assessment as outlined by the university's own rules. Another incorrect approach, which is to allow the candidate to continue using the material without any documentation or further review, is also professionally unacceptable. This undermines the examination's integrity by potentially allowing an unfair advantage. It fails to uphold the principle of a standardized testing environment and could lead to accusations of bias or a compromised examination outcome. This approach neglects the invigilator's responsibility to ensure a level playing field for all participants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Identify the potential violation or ambiguity based on the Adigrat University entrance exam's established rules. 2. Consult the specific Adigrat University entrance exam regulations and guidelines relevant to the situation. 3. If the regulations are unclear, seek clarification from the designated examination authority within Adigrat University. 4. Make a decision based on a strict interpretation of the regulations, ensuring fairness and consistency. 5. Document the decision and the rationale behind it, including any actions taken. 6. Communicate the decision clearly and professionally to the candidate, if appropriate, and to the relevant university authorities. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that during the Adigrat University entrance exam, an invigilator observes a candidate discreetly passing a small, folded piece of paper to another candidate. The invigilator is unsure whether this action constitutes a violation of the exam's strict rules regarding unauthorized assistance. According to the Adigrat University entrance exam's regulatory framework, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Consult the Adigrat University entrance exam's official regulations on academic misconduct and permissible candidate support to determine if the observed action constitutes a violation before taking any further steps. Option B. Immediately confiscate the paper and disqualify the candidate for suspected cheating, as any exchange of materials during the exam is prohibited. Option C. Ask the candidate who passed the paper if they were providing assistance and accept their verbal response as sufficient. Option D. Ignore the interaction, assuming it was a minor, non-academic exchange, to avoid disrupting the examination environment. The correct answer is A. Consult the Adigrat University entrance exam's official regulations on academic misconduct and permissible candidate support to determine if the observed action constitutes a violation before taking any further steps. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the Adigrat University entrance exam's specific regulations regarding acceptable assistance during the examination period. A superficial understanding could lead to either overly lenient or overly strict interpretations, both of which could have negative consequences for the applicant and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Adigrat University entrance exam's official guidelines on academic misconduct and permissible candidate support. This approach is right because it adheres strictly to the established rules, ensuring a fair and consistent evaluation process. Specifically, The Adigrat University entrance exam regulations likely define what constitutes unauthorized assistance. By consulting these precise regulations, the invigilator can determine if the observed behavior falls within the prohibited categories, thereby upholding the integrity of the examination. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement to maintain a standardized testing environment. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring the observed behavior entirely would be a failure to uphold the regulatory framework of the Adigrat University entrance exam. This inaction allows for potential breaches of academic integrity to go unaddressed, undermining the validity of the exam results and potentially creating an unfair advantage for the applicant. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately disqualify the applicant without further investigation or consultation of the specific Adigrat University entrance exam rules, represents an overreaction. This approach fails to consider the nuances of the situation and the possibility that the observed interaction might not constitute a violation according to the exam's specific definitions. It also bypasses the established procedures for handling suspected misconduct, which may require evidence gathering or a formal warning. A third incorrect approach, which is to ask the applicant directly if they received assistance and accept their verbal assurance without verifying against the Adigrat University entrance exam's regulations, is also flawed. This relies on self-reporting, which is inherently unreliable in a high-stakes examination context, and fails to engage with the objective criteria established by the university's entrance exam rules. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Observe and document the specific behavior. 2. Immediately consult the Adigrat University entrance exam's official regulations concerning academic integrity and examination conduct. 3. Interpret the observed behavior in light of the precise definitions and prohibitions within those regulations. 4. If the behavior appears to be a violation, follow the prescribed procedure for reporting or addressing suspected misconduct as outlined by the Adigrat University entrance exam guidelines. 5. If clarification is needed, consult with the designated examination authority or supervisor as per the exam's protocol. Question 14. The control framework reveals that a senior professor has submitted a personal recommendation for an applicant to the Adigrat University entrance exam, urging their admission despite the applicant's performance on certain standardized components of the exam falling slightly below the typical threshold. The admissions committee is tasked with deciding how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action in accordance with Adigrat University's established admission policies and ethical guidelines for entrance examinations? Option A. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the applicant's complete application file, including academic transcripts, previous achievements, and the professor's recommendation, to determine if the applicant meets the overall admission criteria as defined by the university's published standards, documenting the decision-making process transparently. Option B. The admissions committee should grant the applicant preferential consideration due to the professor's recommendation, even if it means slightly bending the established admission score thresholds. Option C. The admissions committee should directly admit the applicant based on the senior professor's recommendation, as their influence carries significant weight within the university. Option D. The admissions committee should disregard the professor's recommendation entirely and proceed solely with the applicant's exam scores, as personal recommendations are not part of the official admission criteria. The correct answer is A. The admissions committee should thoroughly review the applicant's complete application file, including academic transcripts, previous achievements, and the professor's recommendation, to determine if the applicant meets the overall admission criteria as defined by the university's published standards, documenting the decision-making process transparently. Explanation. The control framework reveals a potential conflict between the university's established admission policies and the personal recommendations of a senior faculty member. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing adherence to formal regulations with the influence of internal stakeholders. The admissions committee must navigate the risk of perceived favoritism or bias, which could undermine the integrity of the entrance examination process and the university's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness and transparency while respecting established procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's qualifications against the published admission criteria and a transparent decision-making process that is documented. This upholds the principle of meritocracy, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated based on the same objective standards, as mandated by the Adigrat University Entrance Exam regulations. This approach prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct by preventing undue influence and maintaining the fairness of the selection process. An incorrect approach that bypasses the standard review process and directly admits the candidate based solely on the faculty member's recommendation fails to adhere to the established admission policies. This constitutes a regulatory failure by circumventing the defined procedures and an ethical failure by potentially creating an unfair advantage for one applicant over others, compromising the integrity of the entrance examination. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the faculty member's recommendation without any formal acknowledgement or consideration, might be perceived as disrespectful and could lead to internal friction. While it avoids direct regulatory breach, it misses an opportunity for a controlled and documented process that could have addressed the recommendation within the existing framework. A third incorrect approach, which is to grant the recommendation special consideration without a clear justification that aligns with the admission criteria, also represents a regulatory and ethical failure. It introduces subjectivity and potential bias, undermining the objective nature of the entrance examination and setting a precedent for future deviations from policy. Professionals in this situation should follow a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and regulations. This involves 1. Acknowledging the recommendation formally, 2. Evaluating the applicant strictly against the published admission criteria, 3. Documenting the entire process, including how the recommendation was considered or why it could not be accommodated within the policy. 4. Seeking guidance from relevant university authorities if ambiguity exists. This systematic approach ensures fairness, transparency, and compliance. Question 15. The performance metrics show a slight dip in a particular section for a group of applicants who otherwise demonstrate strong potential across other assessment areas and extracurricular achievements, raising questions about the interpretation of this specific metric within the Adigrat University Entrance Exam framework. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Disregard the performance metric entirely for this group of applicants, focusing solely on the other assessment areas and achievements. Option B. Conduct a deeper qualitative review of these applicants, considering their overall profile and any potential contextual factors that might explain the metric's performance, while still acknowledging the metric as one data point among many. Option C. Manually adjust the specific performance metric for this group of applicants to align with the performance of other successful candidates, without further investigation. Option D. Automatically flag these applicants for further scrutiny and potentially lower their overall score due to the underperformance in the specific metric, regardless of other strengths. The correct answer is B. Conduct a deeper qualitative review of these applicants, considering their overall profile and any potential contextual factors that might explain the metric's performance, while still acknowledging the metric as one data point among many. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's stated goals for student success with the ethical imperative to ensure fairness and accuracy in admissions. The Adigrat University Entrance Exam regulations, as stipulated, likely emphasize meritocracy and equitable opportunity. Misinterpreting or misapplying performance metrics could lead to either admitting underqualified students, thereby compromising academic standards, or unfairly excluding deserving candidates, which would violate principles of fairness and potentially specific Adigrat University admission guidelines. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the metrics are used as intended and do not introduce bias. The correct approach involves a nuanced understanding of how the performance metrics are designed to be interpreted within the Adigrat University Entrance Exam framework. This approach prioritizes a holistic review, where metrics are considered alongside other qualitative factors, and any anomalies are investigated for potential systemic issues or individual circumstances. This aligns with the likely regulatory emphasis on a comprehensive and fair evaluation process, ensuring that the admissions committee adheres to the spirit and letter of the Adigrat University's admission policies, which are designed to identify the most suitable candidates based on a broad range of indicators, not just a single data point. An approach that solely focuses on a single, potentially misleading, performance metric fails to acknowledge the complexity of evaluating candidates and risks oversimplification. This could lead to arbitrary decisions that do not reflect a candidate's true potential or suitability for the program, potentially violating Adigrat University's commitment to fair assessment. An approach that ignores performance metrics altogether, despite their inclusion in the evaluation process, would be a dereliction of duty. The Adigrat University entrance exam regulations likely mandate the consideration of all provided evaluation criteria. Disregarding established metrics without a valid, documented reason would be a direct contravention of these guidelines and could lead to inconsistent and unfair admissions decisions. An approach that attempts to adjust metrics without clear, documented justification or established protocols within the Adigrat University entrance exam framework introduces subjectivity and potential bias. This could undermine the integrity of the admissions process and lead to accusations of favoritism or discrimination, violating the principles of transparency and equity expected in university admissions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the specific Adigrat University entrance exam regulations and admission policies regarding the use of performance metrics. 2. Evaluating the context and potential limitations of each metric. 3. Seeking clarification from relevant university authorities or admissions committees if ambiguity exists. 4. Employing a holistic review process that considers all available information. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them, especially when deviating from standard interpretations or when investigating anomalies. Question 16. The evaluation methodology shows that an applicant for the Adigrat University entrance exam has submitted an academic transcript that contains unusual formatting and a discrepancy in the grading scale compared to the expected standard for their previous institution. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Initiate a formal verification process with the applicant's previous institution and consult university policy on handling discrepancies. Option B. Immediately reject the application due to suspected fraudulent documentation. Option C. Accept the transcript as submitted, assuming it is an alternative grading system. Option D. Request a new transcript from the applicant without investigating the current one. The correct answer is B. Immediately reject the application due to suspected fraudulent documentation. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where an applicant for the Adigrat University entrance exam has presented a document that appears to be a forged academic transcript. This situation is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the integrity of the admissions process and the university's commitment to academic merit. The admissions committee must balance the need to uphold fairness and prevent fraudulent entries with the potential for genuine errors or misunderstandings. Careful judgment is required to ensure that decisions are based on verifiable facts and adhere to established university regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic verification process. This entails cross-referencing the presented transcript with official records from the issuing institution, if possible, or seeking clarification from the applicant's previous school. If discrepancies or evidence of forgery are confirmed, the university's established policy for handling fraudulent applications must be followed. This typically includes rejecting the application and potentially reporting the incident according to university guidelines. This approach is ethically and regulatorily sound as it prioritizes honesty, fairness, and adherence to the Adigrat University's admission regulations, which are designed to ensure that only qualified and legitimately credentialed students are admitted. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on suspicion, without any attempt at verification. This fails to provide the applicant with due process and could lead to the rejection of a legitimate application due to an error. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the transcript at face value without any verification, despite apparent irregularities. This undermines the integrity of the admissions process and could admit unqualified students, violating the university's commitment to academic standards. A third incorrect approach might be to confront the applicant aggressively without presenting evidence or following a structured verification protocol, which could be unprofessional and lead to unnecessary conflict. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes due diligence, fairness, and adherence to institutional policy. This involves 1. Identifying potential issues or discrepancies. 2. Initiating a clear, documented verification process. 3. Communicating with the applicant in a professional manner, if necessary, to seek clarification. 4. Applying established university policies consistently. 5. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made. This structured approach ensures that decisions are objective, defensible, and uphold the principles of academic integrity. Question 17. Investigation of the Adigrat University Entrance Exam Admissions Committee's deliberation reveals a discussion about admitting a candidate who narrowly missed the cutoff score for a highly competitive program. One committee member suggests admitting the candidate due to their strong extracurricular achievements and a perceived good fit for the university's culture, arguing it would enhance diversity. Another member proposes admitting the candidate as a special case to meet a target number of enrollments for that program, emphasizing the need to fill available slots. A third member advocates for strictly adhering to the published score requirements, regardless of other factors. A fourth member suggests that, while the score is important, the committee should consider the candidate's potential to contribute to the university community beyond academics, as outlined in a general university mission statement, which approach most accurately aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adigrat University entrance exam. Option A. Admitting the candidate as a special case to meet a target number of enrollments, prioritizing filling available slots. Option B. Strictly adhering to the published score requirements for the program, as these are the defined objective measures for admission under the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. Option C. Considering the candidate's potential to contribute to the university community beyond academics, as outlined in a general university mission statement, even if they narrowly miss the score cutoff. Option D. Admitting the candidate based on their strong extracurricular achievements and perceived good fit to enhance diversity, as this aligns with broader university goals. The correct answer is B. Strictly adhering to the published score requirements for the program, as these are the defined objective measures for admission under the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's desire to attract a diverse student body and the need to adhere strictly to the admission criteria established by the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of fairness and equal opportunity against the regulatory mandate of objective assessment. Misinterpreting or circumventing these regulations can lead to accusations of bias, unfairness, and a breach of regulatory compliance, potentially jeopardizing the integrity of the entrance examination process and the university's reputation. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of all applicants based solely on the established criteria and guidelines of the Adigrat University entrance exam. This means assessing academic performance, aptitude tests, and any other stipulated requirements without introducing subjective biases or external pressures. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy, which are fundamental to standardized entrance examinations. Adhering strictly to the defined criteria ensures that all candidates are judged on the same objective measures, as mandated by the Adigrat University entrance exam framework. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize candidates based on factors not explicitly outlined in the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations, such as personal connections or perceived future potential outside of the defined assessment metrics. This constitutes a regulatory failure because it deviates from the prescribed admission criteria, undermining the standardized nature of the exam. Ethically, it is a failure of fairness and equal opportunity, as it creates an uneven playing field for applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to relax the admission standards for certain categories of applicants without explicit regulatory provision or justification within the Adigrat University entrance exam framework. This is a regulatory failure, as it violates the established admission thresholds and can be seen as an arbitrary alteration of the exam's purpose. Ethically, it is problematic as it can be perceived as preferential treatment, leading to resentment among other applicants and compromising the perceived legitimacy of the admissions process. A third incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the number of students admitted without ensuring that each admitted student meets the minimum requirements set by the Adigrat University entrance exam. This is a regulatory failure because it prioritizes quantity over quality and adherence to standards. Ethically, it is a failure to uphold the academic integrity of the university by admitting students who may not be adequately prepared, potentially impacting their academic success and the overall academic environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations, a commitment to objective assessment, and a willingness to seek clarification from regulatory bodies or university legal counsel if ambiguities arise. Professionals must prioritize adherence to established rules and ethical principles, ensuring that all decisions are justifiable and transparent, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the examination and admissions process. Question 18. Process analysis reveals that during the Adigrat University entrance exam review, a submitted essay by an applicant exhibits a significant structural and thematic resemblance to a publicly available academic paper. The Adigrat University entrance exam regulations emphasize originality and academic honesty as core principles for admission. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework for handling such a situation? Option A. Approve the applicant's submission without further review, assuming the similarity is coincidental and not indicative of plagiarism. Option B. Forward the applicant's essay and the comparative paper to an external academic integrity committee for an immediate ruling, bypassing the university's internal review process. Option C. Conduct a detailed comparison of the applicant's essay with the identified paper, considering the extent of similarity, potential for independent thought, and adherence to citation guidelines as per Adigrat University entrance exam's academic integrity policy before making a determination. Option D. Immediately disqualify the applicant's submission due to the evident similarity, assuming academic misconduct without further investigation. Correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed comparison of the applicant's essay with the identified paper, considering the extent of similarity, potential for independent thought, and adherence to citation guidelines as per Adigrat University entrance exam's academic integrity policy, before making a determination. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations to a situation where an applicant's submission might be borderline. Careful judgment is required to avoid both undue leniency that compromises standards and undue harshness that might unfairly penalize a candidate. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's submission against the specific criteria outlined in the Adigrat University entrance exam guidelines for originality and academic honesty. This approach is right because it directly adheres to the established regulatory framework for the entrance exam. The Adigrat University entrance exam regulations, by their nature, aim to ensure a fair and standardized assessment process. Therefore, a decision based on a meticulous comparison of the submission with these explicit guidelines upholds the integrity of the examination process and ensures equitable treatment of all applicants. An approach that immediately disqualifies the applicant based on a superficial resemblance to existing materials fails to conduct the necessary due diligence. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the established procedure for evaluating potential academic misconduct, which likely includes a process for investigation and evidence gathering as stipulated by the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. Ethically, it is unfair to penalize an applicant without a proper assessment of the extent and nature of any similarity. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the potential similarity and proceed with the application without further scrutiny, represents a failure to uphold the Adigrat University entrance exam's commitment to academic integrity. This is a regulatory failure, as it neglects the examination's rules designed to prevent plagiarism or other forms of academic dishonesty. Ethically, this approach undermines the fairness of the exam for other applicants who have submitted original work. A third incorrect approach, which is to seek external opinions without consulting the Adigrat University entrance exam's internal review procedures, is also problematic. This is a regulatory failure because it deviates from the prescribed channels for handling such matters within the university's examination framework. Ethically, it could lead to inconsistent or biased decisions if external opinions are not integrated into the official assessment process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulations governing the assessment. 2. Gathering all relevant information and evidence. 3. Applying the regulations objectively to the gathered information. 4. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale. 5. Following established appeal or review procedures if applicable. Question 19. Operational review demonstrates that a number of applicants for the Adigrat University entrance exam have submitted documentation with minor inconsistencies, such as a slight difference in the spelling of a name across different certificates or a discrepancy in the date of a supporting document that is within a few days of the stated requirement. The admissions committee is under pressure to process applications quickly. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adigrat University entrance exam? Option A. Investigate each minor inconsistency by seeking clarification from the applicant or relevant issuing authority to ensure full compliance with the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations before making an admission decision. Option B. Reject all applications with any form of documentation inconsistency, regardless of its perceived significance, to maintain absolute adherence to the letter of the regulations. Option C. Proceed with admitting applicants whose documentation has minor, easily explainable inconsistencies, prioritizing speed of processing. Option D. Allow the admissions committee to use their discretion to overlook minor inconsistencies if they believe the applicant is otherwise qualified, based on informal departmental guidelines. The correct answer is C. Proceed with admitting applicants whose documentation has minor, easily explainable inconsistencies, prioritizing speed of processing. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in ensuring that the university's admission process adheres strictly to the established regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adigrat University entrance exam. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficient processing with the absolute requirement of compliance, especially when faced with potential deviations or ambiguities in the application of rules. A thorough understanding of the specific regulations governing the Adigrat University entrance exam is paramount to making sound decisions. The correct approach involves a meticulous review of the applicant's documentation against the precise criteria outlined in the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. This ensures that all admission decisions are based on objective, verifiable evidence, and that no exceptions are made that could compromise the integrity of the examination process or lead to unfair advantages. Adherence to these specific regulations is not merely procedural. It is ethically mandated to uphold fairness, transparency, and the academic standards of the university. An incorrect approach would be to overlook minor discrepancies, assuming they are inconsequential. This failure to strictly apply the regulations, even for seemingly small issues, can set a dangerous precedent and undermine the entire admission system. It violates the principle of equal treatment for all applicants and could lead to challenges regarding the validity of admissions. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal understandings or past practices that are not explicitly codified in the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. Such actions introduce subjectivity and can lead to arbitrary decisions, which are antithetical to a regulated examination process. Finally, attempting to expedite the process by bypassing verification steps, even with good intentions, directly contravenes the requirement for thoroughness and due diligence mandated by the exam's regulatory framework. Professionals in this situation must adopt a systematic decision-making process. This begins with a clear identification of the relevant regulations for the Adigrat University entrance exam. Next, each applicant's submission must be evaluated against these specific rules, noting any deviations. When discrepancies arise, the professional must consult the official documentation for guidance on how to proceed, prioritizing adherence to the established framework. If ambiguity exists, seeking clarification from the relevant examination authority or committee is essential, rather than making assumptions or applying personal judgment outside the regulatory scope. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every admission decision is defensible and fully compliant with the Adigrat University entrance exams governing laws and guidelines. Question 20. When evaluating the eligibility criteria for the Adigrat University entrance exam, which of the following sources of information would be considered the most authoritative and compliant with the exam's regulatory framework? Option A. The official Adigrat University entrance exam handbook and any supplementary directives issued by the university's admissions office. Option B. General admission guidelines for Ethiopian public universities as published by the Ministry of Education. Option C. The prerequisite subject requirements for a specific undergraduate program at Adigrat University. Option D. Discussions and advice shared on student-run online forums and social media groups related to Adigrat University. The correct answer is A. The official Adigrat University entrance exam handbook and any supplementary directives issued by the university's admissions office. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of university admission within the specific regulatory context of Adigrat University, without resorting to external or generic admissions criteria. The core challenge lies in identifying the admission requirements that are explicitly stipulated by Adigrat University's own framework, rather than assuming common or international standards. The correct approach involves identifying the admission requirements that are directly and exclusively outlined in the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations. This is the most appropriate professional response because adherence to the specific, documented regulations of the institution is paramount. The Adigrat University entrance exam guidelines are the sole governing document for determining eligibility and admission criteria for this specific exam. Any deviation or reliance on external information would be a failure to comply with the established jurisdiction. An incorrect approach would be to assume that Adigrat University follows general Ethiopian higher education admission standards without explicit confirmation within the exam's regulatory framework. This is a regulatory failure because it introduces assumptions that may not be accurate for this particular entrance exam and could lead to misinterpretation of the actual requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to infer admission criteria based on the curriculum of a specific faculty within Adigrat University, as entrance exams are designed to assess a broader foundational knowledge base as defined by the university's overarching entrance examination committee, not faculty-specific prerequisites unless explicitly stated. This is an ethical and regulatory failure, as it narrows the scope of assessment beyond what the entrance exam is intended to measure according to its own guidelines. Finally, relying on information from student forums or unofficial university social media channels is a significant regulatory and ethical breach. These sources are not authoritative and can contain misinformation, leading to incorrect assumptions about admission requirements and potentially disqualifying candidates who have followed inaccurate advice. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a rigorous commitment to consulting and adhering to the official documentation of the relevant examination or regulatory body. Applicants must prioritize the explicit statements within the Adigrat University entrance exam regulations above all other sources of information. This requires a critical evaluation of information sources, distinguishing between official mandates and informal discussions.